Chasing Giants with Don Higgins and Terry Peer. Brought to you by Osseo Camo, nature's most lethal camouflage. Follow along as Don and Terry discuss the techniques, strategies, and dedication needed to harvest one of God's most amazing creations, world-class whitetails.
Well, welcome everyone to the Chasing Giants podcast, episode 218. It is already April 28th, Don. Spring is here, and we think that because of the events today, we might be changing the name of the podcast. What do you think?
Well, I was chasing some giants this morning, but they weren't giant deer. Yeah. There's nothing like waking up in the morning and opening your bedroom window and seeing a herd of cows 15 feet or so from your window grazing in your yard. So, yeah, I got out of bed this morning by Robin opening up the blind, telling me there's a herd of cows in our yard, which was our cows, but they were, it's close to a quarter mile from where their pasture is to our yard. And I'm glad they came this way, because if they'd went in my woods, then I'd have been chased them around my sanctuary. But I got them back in twice. I got them back in. They had knocked a gate off its hinges, and they all got out. Apparently, they just did it this morning, because I was looking at tracks in the mud, and it looks like they popped that gate off the hinges and went right to our house so they could eat the green grass in our yard. And I got a bucket of corn. I let them right back in, and then I set the gate up, and I went to get some stuff to fix the gate. By the time I came back, they'd knocked it down again, and they was out, and they was going into the sanctuary. It was actually in the corner of the sanctuary.
Oh, no.
And I came back, and I pushed them out of the sanctuary on that corner and got them back in again. And by this time, Robin was out there helping me. But we was chasing giants this morning, but they were giant cows, not giant deer.
We are actually recording the podcast on Sunday afternoon and later than normal, so I'm sure people are wondering where we're at, but you and I both took some time last night. We both had dinner with our families. We had junior and senior prom for my two youngest kids, and my oldest daughter and future son-in-law was in town, so we all went out to dinner, and you drove over to Indiana to have dinner with your family, so we waited to record today, but then we started chasing cows.
Yeah, so the cows made me late for church, so we missed the early service and had to go to the late service. But hey, we're on here now, so all's good.
Yeah, I don't think we'll hurt too many people's feelings. We'll just be a couple hours late getting uploaded today. Well,
yeah,
I'm especially excited about today's episode. You've picked out a lot of questions because we don't know how much time we're going to spend, but I want to go through. Spring planting season is here. And I think you got some prep work done on your plots this week. I got a little bit done on mine, have still some more to do. But this happens every spring. Some of the farmers around the country are reading that calendar. I've already seen corn being planted and germinated out in areas like Kansas. I know Josh Pretzer had some corn pop out of the ground this week. And everybody gets in a big rush and big hurry. And let's just take part of this episode today to walk through some of our spring plot crops and talk about each one. And I think this is going to be a helpful resource, whether it's real world products or ag products or even one of our competitors. The same's going to hold true for the families of seeds that hopefully will help land managers and food plotters. So if you're all right with that, let's just jump right into that. Are you okay with that?
Yeah, I do want to throw out, though, that I had my new G-Series drill delivered this week from Wildlife Farming.
Yep.
And I did a little video that I posted on my social media, but the thing that I want to point out is that we at Real World had a chart made for the calibration of those drills. So there's two different things you calibrate on those drills for different seeds and mixes. One of those is for the seed size. You got a gate opening. You want to move that gate opening to accommodate the size of the seed you're planting, and the other is the gear that drives how fast that seed's dropped out. But anyway, Real World had these charts made, and they're made into stickers, and you put those on the inside lid of your G-Series drill or your older Genesis drills, I confirmed with Wildlife Farming this week, and those charts, they're actually the ones that calibrated and gave us those figures that are on those charts. But they will work on both the G Series and the Genesis drills. And those stickers, again, you put them on the inside lid of the box of your drill, and then when it comes time to change seed blends, you can easily look up there and without having to recalibrate, you got the figures right there. But those stickers are free on our website. All you got to do is place an order. If you don't want to place an order, they're for sale for like about $4 a piece just to cover the cost of the sticker and the shipping. Yep. Yeah. But free with any order. So if you plant real world products and you have a Genesis or a G Series drill, you need to get you one of those calibration stickers to put on your lid.
We had 3 arrive at Cornerstone this week for customers of ours. We're also a dealer down here in Kentucky at our locations. And I tell you what, Paul has done a great job with some of the improvements on this drill. We had him on earlier and talked about it with him, but you know, that original Genesis drill was just so heavy, and it was made to be heavy to, you know, for all purposes, including, you know, switchgrass and frozen ground. But I really like the design changes on this one, especially that metal drive wheel, and that the drill itself is lighter and you can add weights to it when you need the weight. But you know, you guys wanting to run an 8-foot drill are not going to need quite the heavy of a tractor like you used to be able to run a PH. So that's the thing I like best about it.
Yeah, my old Genesis drill was an 8-foot HD model. They had 2 models in the past, a heavy duty and then a regular. And that heavy duty model was way heavier than it needed to be. I mean, I got a 115 horse tractor with a cab and a front loader on it. So there's a lot of weight there. But you put that 8-foot drill on the back and you knew you had it back there. Now it handled it just fine. It wasn't a problem handling it, but it was a little extra weight that wasn't needed. This new one is a good bit lighter. I'm sure it's plenty heavy enough to do what I need it to do. Absolutely. But that's one huge improvement.
Yeah, I really like a couple things that they've come out with. So check that out. We appreciate Wildlife Farming and also Paul at PH Outdoors for helping us on the podcast. Excited to use ours. We're going to be both using it this year to plant. So let's dive in. I guess the biggest news right now is let's just get the bad news out of the way, and that is the switchgrass from Real World. Let's go ahead and just get that out of the way and talk about it for a second.
Yeah, you know, I think it was last week or the week before we announced that the soybeans were going to sell out for the first time this year, the Gen 2 soybeans. But I didn't even realize how close we were to selling out of switchgrass. We sold out of switchgrass this week. So you cannot call or go online and order switchgrass from Real World. I'm sure there's some dealers that have some in inventory, distributors. Yeah, you need to check with them. Don't call Real World looking for it because we don't have it. You're going to have to go directly to our dealers. Miscanthus sales are going to end this coming week as well. You know, getting into the 1st of May, those rhizomes need to be dug when they're dormant, and once they start growing, it's too late. So we still got we can get, you know, plenty of orders in this week because there's already a bunch that's been dug and in storage waiting for us to use. But those 2 things, this is like it's too late for switchgrass last week for miscanthus. Soybeans, I'm going to guess within the next 2 to 4 weeks, somewhere in there, they're going to run out as well. But that's a good thing. Sales are booming.
Absolutely. Well, one of the most popular questions we're getting right now is the folks that have already gotten their miscanthus shipments and say have them in a refrigerator right now. How late is too late that they can get their miscanthus in the ground, Don, as long as they've been in the refrigerator?
Well, if they keep it refrigerated, that stuff can go in June, probably up to the 1st of July. It's no different than a bare root seedling. You know, you get your bare root seedling, it's dormant, it's been kept in refrigerated storage until it's shipped. If you put it in refrigerated storage when you get it, you can keep it dormant for a couple of months easy. But the couple of really important things, one is don't freeze it. Make sure it does not freeze. That temperature needs to be like about 35, 36 degrees to keep it dormant. The other thing is make sure that it's got plenty of humidity or moisture. don't let it dry out. You may have to go in every few days and wet it down if you got a bulk bag. If you just got the 100 count bags, they'll be fine because we got a moisture retention gel in there that'll keep it moist in that sealed plastic bag. But those big bulk bags, make sure they don't dry out.
So I saw a couple people posting on social media this week, and it's kind of a, maybe I shouldn't feel bad about it, but the last thing I want to do is discourage them. But they were taking a spade shovel in sod and dropping in rhizomes to get them in. And folks, we've been preaching this. It's better to wait on this product and make sure that you have absolutely perfect seed bed. It's not seed, but a strip that is weed free and tilled up loose soil. And the survival of this product depends greatly on prep work. We can't say it enough. I would rather you wait till June and plant it in a prepped area than freak out about trying to get it in at a certain point in time and end up having a failure because you just didn't get rid of the weed competition.
You know, I remember when we first came out with Miscanthus, there was another habitat consultant who has a popular YouTube channel that immediately started bashing Miscanthus, and he showed some Miscanthus that he had planted and how poorly it did for screening. It was just a little clump, you know. Well, it was planted in sod. It cannot compete with that. The root system of the Miscanthus cannot compete with the root system of that sod that's already established. And you're just not going to get good growth out of it. You're going to be extremely disappointed. You got to do things right, folks. There's no other way about it. You got to do it right if you want to have good results. Anything else, you're going to be disappointed. You're going to be wasting your money, and it's not going to do what you want it to.
Yeah, so post these things coming out of dormancy and actually emerging into the ground. Once that happens, the only contact herbicide you can use is pretty much clinclorac and 2,4-D. They're two of the ones that you can use on it. But the problem is when you have that competition come back like foxtail, once that stuff gets mature, it's so hard to kill. So get your weed bed completely prepped, use your residual, get that soil good and loose, even if it takes waiting a couple extra weeks. Now, the other question we had with Miscanthus was, once the little green sprouts start to happen inside the bag, can I put it back in the refrigerator and get it back dormant?
Well, I wouldn't say it's going to go back dormant, but it'll stall it out. I mean, if you keep it cool, then it's going to really slow down that growth of that new sprout off of that Miscanthus rhizome root. So, you know, the thing of it is just keep it cool until you want to plant it, and it'll prevent that. But if it has started to sprout, that doesn't mean that, you know, it's ruined or it's going to die. When you plant it, you need to make sure that sprout is pointed upward. If you're just planting a root that's not sprouted, it doesn't matter how you throw it in the ground. Just lay it in there. I mean, you want to lay it basically horizontal or parallel with the ground. You don't want it sticking up, but you just cover it, and that root will be able to sense the heat, the temperature difference, the heat up high, and it'll grow up towards that heat. But if it's already started, you need to make sure that that sprout is pointed up.
Yep. All right, good call. I hope that helps everybody with Miscanthus that is sitting there waiting. Let's move over to corn, Don, and we have NutriCrave corns becoming really, really popular. We've talked about herbicide programs till we've been blue on the face versus, you know, non-GMO and then GMO corn. NutriCrave is you're going to have to do your weed protection before you plant, not a post-emerge application. So as far as timing, this is going to be dictated a lot by where people are at in the United States, and we have two different types of corn. Do you know off the top of your head the availability of both of those corns? I guess I should have checked before I got on here.
Actually, there's a 100-day NutriCrave corn, there's a 112-day NutriCrave corn. Obviously, the 100-day would be for more northerly regions. We have sold out of the 100-day. So no 100-day corns available from Real World. You may find some at a dealer or distributor, but you're not going to get it from Real World. The 112, it looks like, I don't know if we're going to run out or not. We still got a good bit in inventory, so the 112 is not a problem.
Yep. So corn, we always say follow what your farmers are doing. Their farmers are usually really good at reading the calendar. And Dwayne Hopkins has always said that read the conditions, not the calendar. Excuse me. That's what Dwayne always says. So
Right.
don't get freaked out, but watch what your farmers are doing. And corn it's getting close if it's not there already in your neck of the woods. Let's take a quick break and listen to a spot from Asia, and then we'll come back and spend a little bit more time on soybeans because that seems to be where most of the questions are. We'll be right back.
Osseo Gear has perfected one of the most innovative camo patterns on the market. The unique camo pattern designed to mimic the feather patterns of one of North America's greatest predators, the great horned owl. Combined with intuitive features, superior comfort, and ultra high quality fabrics give bow hunters the ultimate advantage. Osseo has outfitted over 10,000 bow hunters across the country with over 1,000 5-star reviews. Visit asiogear.com to check it out for yourself. Use code CHASINGGIANTS for 15% off.
Okay, Don, before we get into soybeans, there is one product that I am planting this year that I did not frost seed, and that is soil charge. I'm converting a big section, I shouldn't say big section, but a inside corner of my ridge that is going to be set up long term next year for switchgrass. And I want a fall plot on a small inside corner. So I want to go ahead and get those weeds under control. And we made soil charge to where it was pretty versatile. It can be used in the spring, frost seeded, but then it could also be planted about the same time as your corn and soybeans just to get soil health up and keep those weeds at bay for us to come in and put in our fall plot. How late do you think would be too late if somebody was wanting to provide a food source, but the ultimate goal was a fall plot, they just wanted to use up space? How late you think we could go with getting in soil charge and it being okay?
Oh, I think you could probably go to the 1st of June. I actually sprayed all my plots this week, and 3 of the plots I sprayed, I'm going to put in soil charge. And I intended to have it in the ground before now. It's just been too wet here recently, but I've got them sprayed. As soon as it dries out, I'm going to use that new G Series drill, and I'm going to put soil charge in 3 different plots. So you still got a good month or so.
All right. And then where most of the questions every year come is with soybeans. And there's guys that are planting them right now. There's guys that are going to go into even late June with some soybeans. Let's talk a little bit about that.
Well, as far as planting times, I've become a big fan in the past, say, 2 or 3 years of letting the soil temperature warm up before I plant, especially soybeans and switchgrass. Those are 2 things that I used to plant about as soon as I could get in the ground. Well, actually, the switchgrass, I used to be a big proponent of frost seeding, which I've totally changed my mind on that. But the soybeans, as soon as the ground conditions were dry enough, I was out there planting them. And the thing of it is that a lot of times if the soil is too cool, that seed will lay there for a period of time before it germinates, but a lot of weeds will germinate with the cooler temperatures. So by the time that soybean pops out of the ground, there's already a crop of weeds there starting as well. If you wait until the soil temperature's 60, 65 degrees and plant those soybeans, you get the sun beating down on that soil, you can have soybeans out of the ground in 5 days
Right.
if the moisture's there and the heat's there. So you're a whole lot better to do that than you are to put that in the ground and have it just struggling for the first 30 days or so to take off. So don't get in too big a hurry. I'd let the farmers, when you start seeing the ag fields in your area with soybeans out of the ground, then go in and plant yours. Let those deer get keyed in on feeding in those farmers' fields before you plant your plots, and then come in, a week or 2 after they're planting. Actually, more like 2 to 3 weeks after they're planting. And you can plant soybeans clear up to 1st of July.
Yeah.
I think earlier is better. I mean, to a certain degree. I don't think you want to be doing it too early, but as I just explained, but mid to late May, where I'm at in the Midwest, is about ideal.
Yep. I usually I've had the best success of where I think my sweet spot is usually the 3rd, 4th week of May. but I have planted them as late as the second week of June when it's been too wet. So, soybeans are probably the most versatile crop that we can plant as habitat managers outside of, fall plots, because you can do a method like what you do with no-till, where you go in and just spray your vegetation and then they come up inside of the dead weeds. You can obviously have ground worked. You can use corn planters for them and crisscross, and you can even broadcast them. There's so many different ways that you get by with it, but the biggest thing that I've always just tried to plan my soybean planting around is what browse pressure is going to be. Because at the first germination, if those deer come in and nip off the top of that plant, that plant's gone. And I made a mistake a couple times in just the timing of the first cut of my alfalfa was when the beans germinated. And so that alfalfa was scalped. You had 3 and 4 days where they were raking it and then baling it, and then of course it bounces back. If that happens at the same time, you were on my ridge last week, you could just imagine all of those bean plots just get hammered because of the alfalfa not being there to eat. So I think for my area, what I've tried to protect myself against is just make sure that I'm timing it right for browse pressure.
Yeah, and the thing about soybeans, in my opinion, that's the easiest food plot to grow, period, is soybeans, for a number of reasons. One is the many different planting methods that can be used, but also the different seeding rates. If you plant them too heavy, well, guess what? You're still going to get a good crop. That soybean plant is going to utilize the space it's given. If you plant them too light, well, guess what? Each plant has more space. It'll utilize that space. I talked about that calibration chart that we made into a sticker for the Genesis drill and the G-Series drill. Actually, there's 4 different soybean settings on there, and we did that for different planting rates. So there's a setting if you want to plant 50 pounds an acre. There's a setting for 60 pounds an acre. There's a setting for 75 pounds an acre, and there's one for 90 pounds an acre. So, the more browse pressure you got, obviously, the more seed you want to put down per acre.
Right. All right. Well, I hope that helps everybody. But we know every year people go in panic mode, and this is the time of year where if you go in panic mode and try to get stuff done because you feel that pressure from social media that you're the only one with beans and corn not in the ground, everybody else does, and you take a shortcut with your soil prep or your fertilizer or your inputs, it can pay big problems on your plate later on to deal with, especially with weeds and germination. So hope that helps everybody. And hopefully it keeps us from answering the 45 questions over the next couple of days, because we get burned up this time of year.
The questions will still be there, but I'm sure we've eliminated a few.
Yeah. Well, before we move on to the questions that you picked out for this week, do you want to show some gifts that you got in the mail post your
I did.
chasing big spur turkey hunts this year?
Hear that? I have no idea what I'm doing. Now, I am a turkey expert on the internet, just like these deer experts. I've shot one bird, and I had, can you see that, the Chasing Giants logo there?
Yeah, look at that.
There we go. Nick Martin sent me this. He's got a company called Lethal Custom Calls, and sent me this turkey call. And get it closer to my mic so you guys can hear it.
I think we need Al Foster to give you a little tutorial there.
Well, I was trying to do a sick turkey there, Terry, because if there's a sick turkey and a gobbler hears a sick hen, he knows he's got a better chance of catching her, so he will come running. See, right? I'm a turkey expert now.
Yeah, there you go. Somebody will make a YouTube video on that now.
Yeah, I had my buddy Chris Kosmeyer from Missouri. He seen a post I made. Did you see that shack in the woods with the 2 milk cans there that I posted? Well, that was on my last consulting trip in Wisconsin, and I guess those are called sugar shacks. And my client called it a sugar shack, but I had no idea what he was talking about. I didn't know if he was taking his sugar baby back to the shack or what. But so what it is when they collect sap out of maple trees to make maple syrup, I I don't know if they run their lines into them shacks, or they burn it down or boil it down in them shacks or whatever. But that's what those milk cans were for. They collected in them milk cans. But anyway, Chris Kosmeyer, he sent me some maple syrup that he made, and haven't tried it yet, but it looks really dark and really thick, so I'm guessing it's really good.
When you posted that picture on social media, I thought, man, that would be really cool to make a pedestal for a deer head.
On a milk
come
can?
Up off the top of that. You know, just an old rustic milk can, put some weight in the bottom so it wouldn't tip over, and then maybe some type of hide or rod or something up there. But I
might do that.
I think when people take old stuff like that and make pedestals for deer heads, I think they look really, really cool.
I might do that. Actually, you know, I could put either concrete or sand in the bottom of that, you know, so it would hold in place. That's a great idea.
Yeah, I got a whiskey barrel with 2 of my deer heads on it, and I've thought about, you know, using the fence post and stuff like that. I built Patrick Simpson a pedestal with a fence post and had some barbed wire and stuff in it. But yeah, I thought that's what I thought of when you showed that picture of that. I was like, that'd be a cool pedestal.
You know, that was my last consulting visit of the year, and I would mention the client's name, but I don't know if he wants people to know I was at his farm, so I'm not going to. But just a super, super good guy. And we came across that shack, and I seen those 2 milk cans in there, and I grabbed them, and they were in pretty good shape. And we was carrying them out to his wife, and he just insisted that I was going to take one. I didn't really. I was carrying one out. He carried one out. I carried one out, and I was just doing it for his wife, you know. And we got back, and he just insisted that I was going to take one with me. But just another of the super good people that I meet on these consulting visits. And that's one reason I can't bring myself to totally retire from consulting, is because of these great people that I meet.
Well, I got a question. Carrying that milk jug out or carrying that turkey back 680 yards from the back of my farm, which one was heavier?
The turkey was heavier because this milk can was all downhill, and I only had to carry it about a third as far as I had to carry that turkey, and it was all downhill. So that milk can was a lot easier than the turkey.
I think Al showed you up with a turkey over his shoulder, hoofing 2 birds out of there.
That's because I killed the granddaddy of all turkeys, and he killed a chick. It's pretty easy when you can put your turkey in your shirt pocket, and the other guy has to put a drag on his.
He's gonna get a chuckle when he listens to this one.
I hope he listens.
I saw that him and his daughter got a bird in Illinois. That's pretty cool. They've been trying to do that for a while.
That's awesome. You know, his youngest daughter, Chelsea, I know, has hunted with Al for, I don't know, last 2 or 3 or 4 years, whatever. And I think that's the highlight of Al's whole season, is taking his daughter, and it was great to see him get a bird this week.
Yep. Well, we appreciate that, and I want to make one quick kind of announcement or request. We said on the podcast a couple weeks ago that Lester's Feet was going to try to steer clear of the automated welfare requests that we've been getting through our online database, and you guys have responded. I know Don got an email and forwarded it to me the other day. We've gotten like 5 requests in the last week from people in your communities, from your churches. I'm fully expecting Lester's Feet to go completely grassroots, to be honest with you, because not only are we helping the people that help raise this money, but to be quite honest with you, when you guys are sending us information, it's somewhat already vetted out. You know, we're already getting a recommendation from one of you all that it is a need, versus somebody wanting us to pay their rent because a kid has no condition or they just want welfare. Mm-hmm. So we appreciate that. I made that a request on the podcast, and you guys have responded. So thank you very much. We're working hard to help all these people out. It's cool to see it come full circle. All of you guys are helping us raise this money, and then you guys are connecting us with the families in need. That's pretty special.
Yeah, I tell you, I said it before. You hear about these families with sick kids and whatever, and you feel for them, but until your own child goes through something, and I don't care how old your child is, your child could be 70 years old and you're 90, when your child is going through something, that gives you a whole different perspective. And I've seen that. And if there's any good that comes out of Andrea's situation, it's the fact that it's really softened my heart for these situations with parents that have sick kids. So just anybody that's going through that, just know that I feel for you and you're in my prayers.
So yeah, send us. Don will obviously forward the messages to you, but if you, my contact is all over the Higgins Outdoors website and the Real World website and through social media. However you can get that to me, and then one of our board members will start looking and working on trying to see if we can help those families. So thank you very much. I just wanted to throw that out there. We've gotten connected with quite a few families since I made that announcement. So you ready to move on to the first question there, Donna?
I'm ready.
All right. Did I just call you Donna?
I thought you said Donald, but
okay.
Whatever. I've been called so much worse. I could probably go on the internet and find something about somebody this morning that's called me worse.
I'm glad it sounded like Donald, because I think I let it slip and said Donna. So we'll go with Donald.
Well, I've been called much worse. First one comes from Drake Evans from Forsyth, Illinois, not far from me. It says, Don and Terry, a listener wrote in asking whether the average deer hunter could kill the same deer as you and Lee Lakoski and others of that caliber if they could hunt the same ground you do. Your answer was no, and you gave some valid reasons, but you left out the most obvious and most important thing, which is the ability to put the arrow where it needs to go. Now of truth. That alone takes 75% of the people out of the equation. I may have missed a few podcasts, but not many, yet I never hear you talk about the number one most important thing of all, which is being prepared to put the arrow where it goes. I am disgusted at times by hunters I know going to the field ready to hunt after shooting 3 arrows in the backyard, then losing deer. Nothing else you do, from building your farm, playing the wind, proper tree stand placement, etc., matter at all if you can't finish the job. The guys that continually kill big bucks all have this in common, and it is a rare skill. I would think that the most important skill of all would be mentioned more and emphasized more on the podcast. God bless, and thanks for teaching me a multitude of things about deer hunting and about how men should carry themselves. Well, Drake, appreciate your support and your comment there. You're right. We probably don't talk about, putting the arrow where it goes enough. And I think it really comes down to yardage, and there's going to be a lot of people disagree with me, but I've always, to be honest, I'm not a very good shot with a bow. I'm just not. I mean, if I get them within 20 yards, they're just about definitely dead. Once they start getting out to 30 and beyond, well, first of all, I won't shoot past 30. 30 is my absolute maximum. And I do everything I can to set my stands up for 20 yards, and even between 15 and 20 is ideal. 20 is at the far end of what I'm setting up for. If I can get a deer in that 15 to 20 yard range, there is no excuse for missing him. I don't care how bad of a shot you are. Then it comes down to only taking shots at good angles. If you're shooting at a deer because he's at whatever angle, well, you're bound to lose deer. It don't matter how close or how far he is. You got to let him turn broadside or slightly quartering away. You got to get him close, and then it takes some experience. And shooting does and working your way up is a big part of it. There's nothing wrong with that. But I think I've said this before, that bow hunter is a 2-part word, bow and hunter. And there's a lot of people that focus on the bow part or the archery part. They're always tinkering with their bow and their equipment, and they're trying to get additional yardage, out of their effective range. They're trying to add to their effective range, with their equipment. Well, what I'm trying to do, and I've always done this, is I've always been more about the hunting part. I don't like tinkering with my bow whatsoever. I find something that works. Terry will tell you, I'm using a whisker biscuit and a sight from the 1970s. But if I get a deer in 20 yards, I'm going to kill him. So while the bow hunters that focus on the bow or the archery part, they're trying to extend their range of how far they can shoot deer. I've always focused on the hunter part. I want to become a better hunter so I can get those deer closer. And if I can get those deer closer, then I darn sure ought to be able to. If I can't hit a deer at 20 yards, I've got no business in the woods. And I mean, I don't know what more to say. You got to get them close. You got to get them at the right angle. You got to, you know, when the moment of truth comes, you got to know when to hit the trigger and when to hold off. And it comes with experience, but you get that experience doesn't have to come with mature bucks. You can gain that experience by shooting does and younger bucks as you're slowly raising the bar.
Well, I think that's part of the confidence factor. And guys that are coming in and trying to go too quickly to a certain point in the process bypass a lot of what the Legends Roundtable talked about, and that's woodsmanship. You know, that's not only where to hunt, how to hunt, but also when to take the shot, what's a good shot. You know, both of us have been in situations where we've had deer in point blank range and not had a shot. And, you know, there would be people that would call it like it is, just take a pot shot for the sake of time. And the ethical side of taking a humane shot to an animal, I think is somewhat lost in the world, and I don't know why, but we were just raised a lot different with, you know, it's got to be an ethical shot, and that means it could be too far away, or it could be too close, or it could be at the wrong angle. We've all been put in that situation before.
Well, I'll take this another direction. The bow hunting community lacks for good role models. That doesn't mean there's none, but there are some people in the bow hunting world that are looked up to that should not be looked up to, in my opinion. They are not conservationists. They have very poor ethics. I had a guy on another podcast bashing me not too long ago, and the guy was embarrassing to listen to because he had no ethics whatsoever. It was all about kill. Kill, kill, kill. Bloodthirsty killmonger is what the guy, what was the image the guy portrayed to me. And I didn't have that kind of role model whenever I was young. And I think that there's a lot of young hunters today that are looking up to some people that are doing a very poor job of promoting good ethical shots. And it's not kill, kill, kill. It's, you know, leave the woods better than you found it. Everything you do in the woods, you should be leaving it better than you found it. Now, harvesting deer or shooting deer, killing deer, however you want to word it, is fine. There's nothing wrong with that. But, you know, there's guys that I have no doubt would shoot the last living deer in their county if they got the opportunity.
Right.
And there's other counties, you know, where you could go out and shoot 100 deer and it would be ethical because the deer herd in that area needed it. But everything we do in the woods should leave nature better than we found it, whether it be the deer herd or the habitat. And I don't see enough role models in the industry preaching these things. They're preaching kill, kill, kill.
Well, and I don't know that some of it is that, I guess, bold. But, you know, I'm a little bit younger than you, so when I was getting into hunting in my late teenage years, the VHS and video shows were just starting to really become popular. Yeah, I remember a bunch of guys on a Friday or Saturday night would go down to the local video store, and we'd see what videos were they able to rent and then take them home and sit there and watch all these shots. And I remember just being so envious of these guys at that point in my life taking whitetail at 50, 55, 60 yards. And I look back on that now and think about how, you know, impressionable I was at that point in my life, saying, oh, this is okay. If I go buy this bow, I can go do this. And instead of at that point in my life being more, I guess, drawn to the Winsel brothers and Bobby Worthington type role models, where it was figure out how to hunt and get within the yardage that you can spit on one of these critters. And that's how you really take your game up. It's not about how far you can shoot. It's about how close you can get. And I look back at my life and think about different points in my life when I first started, how impressionable I was. And I think for the most part, our general public is still probably like that.
The farthest I've ever shot a deer with my bow was 35 yards. And that was back when I was in my 20s, probably I was in my early 20s when I did that. And today I wouldn't even take a 35-yard shot. 30 is my absolute maximum limit. And I think as we get older and we mature, when you're young, a target deer comes by, whether it be a buck or maybe you're just hunting for a doe. Let's face it, a younger hunter typically does not get as many opportunities as a experienced veteran hunter, just because they lack the knowledge to put themselves in position. So when that rare opportunity comes along, a lot of times they're slinging arrows, no matter how far out the deer is or what the shot angle is. They're just throwing arrows, and losing a deer is sometimes there's no excuse for it. Now it's going to happen to just about every bow hunter at some time or another, but most of the time a lost deer is lost because the hunter did something wrong, and it's either he shot farther than he should. There's the three big ones. He shot farther than he should, he shot at a bad angle, or he jumped out of his tree stand and started tracking the deer too soon. Those are probably the three big reasons for lost deer.
Yep. Might have to go into that a little bit further one of these days. That's a good topic. All right, but for right now, let's move on to question number 2.
This one comes from Carl Wigierski. Hope I said your name right, Carl. Carl Wigierski from Fielden, Illinois. Says, hi, Don and Terry. Thanks for passing on your knowledge, opinions, and faith. I was just discussing a grain sorghum planting for a friend's farm and saw you'll be offering a sorghum blend soon. I really like grain sorghum as a late food source and have used it as a screen. It's a great planting for an amateur food plotter to broadcast and can get it enough nitrogen. I quit planting it after a neighbor complained about it, claiming it leads to spreading shatter cane. He is of the opinion that the seed mixes are too similar for a seed cleaning machine to exclude the shatter cane when preparing seed. This leads to spreading cane by bird and deer excrement and is the bane of corn farmers' combines. I highly respect this neighbor farmer and would be interested in your thoughts on what seems to be a widely shared opinion. Well, Carl, I'm not going to doubt that what you say is it's a widely shared opinion, but I will say I've never heard that opinion before. I can assure you that a quality seed a quality grain sorghum seed is not going to have any shatter cane in it whatsoever. It's just not even going to be in the same field that's being harvested for this seed. It's not going to be there. So if shatter cane is to be introduced somehow, it's not going to be through a reputable seed company. Now, there's some of these cheaper seed companies, maybe some bird mixes or whatever, where maybe there's a shatter cane in there. I don't know. I know exactly what shatter cane is. I've actually got a little bit of it in one corner of my farm. It's a corner where 3 different properties come together. This shatter cane it was actually there when I was in high school at this exact same location. It's not all over the farm. It's in one little area that's maybe at the very most a quarter acre where these 3 properties come together. I remember in high school working for a farmer that owned was farming one of those 3 fields. And we was out there ahead of the combine cutting this stuff with big machetes and hauling it off to burn it. That stuff is still there today. It's nasty stuff. I spray for it every year. My neighbors that own the other 2 properties spray for it as well. We try to wipe it out, but it's still there. So I totally understand the problem. But the idea that you're going to bring that in with grain sorghum seed, if you're getting your grain sorghum seed from a reputable seed source, that is nothing to worry about whatsoever. I assure you it's not going to be in the real world grain sorghum mix, which, by the way, we just started in the last week or 2, put that on the website as part of a pilot program. We don't have a whole lot of it. I know we've sold a good little bit so far, so I'm not sure how much is left. But if you're interested in trying that grain sorghum blend, it's a blend of 2 different grain sorghums. You'll definitely be able to see the difference in the 2 when you plant it, but we have that available on the website now.
We both raised it on our farms last year.
Yep.
Actually, I think I raised 4 varieties, 3 or 4. I know Wes raised some on his. You had it on yours. We had it in quite a few areas for testing last year before we went to pilot program, though.
Yeah, we just picked out the best 2 of those varieties that we tested, and that's what's in this blend.
Yep. All right. Good question. We'll get number 3 up here. This is a short one.
Billy Geese from St. Louis, Missouri says, "Hi, Don. What would you think about putting screens through the middle of food plots to direct deer closer to your stand?" Well, Billy, I think I don't think it's a bad idea, but I think that I've been on enough properties. I've seen situations where landowners have tried to break up their food plots with these different screens, and in the process, they cost themselves food plot acreage that they really needed. So in other words, they screened all the way around the edge of the plot, and then they maybe screened 2 or 3 different sections of the plot, and they didn't have enough food on the property as it was, and they're giving up acreage for these screens, which are also competing with the plot. You know, if there were soybeans in a plot, for example, and they're growing right up next to these screens, be it switchgrass, miscanthus, or whatever, those plants right next to those taller screening plants are not going to produce as much. So they're costing themselves an opportunity to provide more food. Now, if you've got unlimited food plot acreage, I don't think it's a bad deal, but I also think it's overrated. Again, I was listening to a video the other day. Actually, it was the Tony LaPratte debate video with myself, and he said something about a food plot that he divided into 13 different sections because a buck steps out, he can't see the whole plot, and blah, blah, blah. I don't know that I've ever seen that happen on my farm. I don't know that I've ever seen a buck step out to the edge of a plot, look both ways, see that from one end to the other, and then turn around and go back in the cover because he can see it all. Now he knows there's no does out there, so he goes back into the cover. I've never seen that happen. Now, I'm not going to say it never has, but I'm going to tell you it's pretty darn rare. And in my opinion, I would rather take that food plot acreage, and I'm fine with breaking it up into different crops to diversify the food offering as much as possible. But I don't think that you need, in most situations, I don't think you need to break it up with screening, whether it be miscanthus, switchgrass, or whatever.
I like to divide mine up, but a lot of it's due to the shape. You know, your property has long, narrow strips. I have a big, wide ridge, but mine is more honestly for crop rotation than it is anything. So, you know, I want to be able to rotate, and where that line is, deer will use the variance in height as a, you know, to walk along and feed along, but to just make a bunch of hotel rooms in an open field, I don't know about that. Now, you might want to put something down along the side, like if you have a bean field, run corn down it so you can walk on the back side of the corn so that you don't blow a bunch of deer out. That's a different story than what I think a lot of people are trying to overcomplicate some design.
Well, I agree. I think using screening for access around the edge of a plot or whatever is a great idea. I just think that there's a lot of things being thrown out there that may sound good in theory, but you know, their importance or their benefit on a property is probably very limited.
Yep, I agree. All right, good question. Here's number 4.
This one comes from Alex Dunker from Hull, Illinois. It says, Don, could you speak on sizing perennial clover plots? It seems to me like many clover plots are oversized. I understanding occasionally mowing for weed suppression, but if the plot is not oversized, wouldn't deer do most of the clover mowing themselves? If you must constantly mow to get new growth, is that an indication that the clover plot is too big and those acres might be better utilized as brassica or grain? Well, that's a great point, Alex. I think that as far as the mowing of the clover, you know, mowing of the clover, there's two reasons for it. One is to set that clover plant back so that it doesn't fulfill its life cycle. In other words, it doesn't go to seed and then die. You set it back and it never produces seed. It keeps trying to regenerate new growth and reproduce. So you've got that fresh, tender growth at all times. So that's one reason that, and you mentioned that, would deer browsing do the same thing? Well, yeah, it would, but you know what happens when you get a drought or something and that plant stops growing and then you lose it all, but because the deer eat it down to the ground. But one of the main reasons for mowing is it keeps your weed pressure under control. You don't have near as many weeds when you mow it. You know, mowing will kill a lot of broadleaf weeds. Just mowing them off, and that's the end of them. To keep that clover plot, you know, lush and weed free, that's why you mow. Now, that when it comes to the size of the plot, I can understand what you're saying. I've seen probably more clover plots on clients' properties that were neglected by never being mowed than I have seen plots that were clover plots that were well maintained. Without a doubt, there's been more neglected than well maintained. Personally, on my property, I use clover like on my access routes around the edge of the fields or plots. If I got a big plot, you know, I may put 15 or 20 feet of clover around the edge where the deer first step out. And what that'll do is when the deer first step out of the cover into that clover before they hit the soybeans or whatever it is, you can take some browse pressure off of that crop. And it also allows you, when the crop is up, to have good access around your property, whether it be for hunting or to maintain your plots or whatever it may be. They're good travel routes for you and the deer, so you're not destroying habitat as you're doing them. But you know, I don't have a clover plot per se on my farm, but I've got a lot of clover in little like 10-foot to 15-foot wide strips around the edges everywhere. So deer have always got clover on my place, but it's never in a big plot.
The other thing about clover, it's the one product we have that you can drive equipment over. You know, we don't have any other product that won't have something that breaks underneath of you. So, you know, your access roads, like you mentioned, we had a good friend, Ray, I think, asked us about that, you know, not too long ago. But yeah, that's the one thing you can use, and it's a little bit shade resistant. So right up against your field edge, your clover will do better than trying to grow corn or soybeans right up against the tree line. So that's another thing that you can use for it.
Yeah, and clover is one of the first things to green up in the spring. I mean, my clover right now for the last 30 days or more has been just one of the greenest things out there, providing food right now when those deer are coming out of winter. You know, high quality, lots of nutrients, high protein, just a great food source for early. So, you know, I think every property needs either clover or alfalfa because those two things green up really early in the spring, and they're both very nutrient dense.
Yep. Okay. We're going to try to get two more, but this one may take a little bit, so we'll put this one up first.
All right, this one comes from Ralph Moore from Taylor, Kansas. He says, Don and Terry, thank you for the great no BS content that you guys put out. Don, I know a lot of young guys dream of being in your position in the hunting industry one day, but I think they often only see the glamour of being a hunting celebrity and never see the negatives that come with the territory. In order to help these young guns see the entire picture, can you mention some of the negative things that someone in your position must deal with? I'm not talking about the haters, which you and Terry have addressed several times, but other little things that most of us don't see or even think about. I just think that so many young guys have a false idea of what folks like you in the hunting industry deal with on a regular basis. Thank you. Well, Ralph, you've mentioned the haters, so I'll leave the haters. We could talk about them the rest of the podcast, some of the things that Terry and I have experienced. But, you know, the biggest negative for me is that I've gotten so busy in recent years, and especially in like the last couple of years, that like when I first started this riding as an outdoor rider and I started Real World and all that, I prided myself on returning every email, every text message, every phone call. Anytime any person reached out to me, I prided myself on answering every one of them. And I think that was a big reason for the success that I've had is I've tried to always remain personable to everybody. And I've made so many friends over the years that it's very, very difficult for me to remain in contact the way I would like to with everyone. There's just not enough hours in the day. And I feel bad that I can't, when somebody reaches out to me, sometimes they'll get a one-word response. They'll say, it'll be a yes or no question, and I'll just say yes or no. And I don't have the time to give them a detailed explanation. And then I'll be honest, there's a lot of today, it's just more and more all the time. There's more and more phone calls, emails, texts, whatever, that fall through the cracks that don't get answered because there's just not enough time. And here, just this week, I had lunch with a friend, an old friend that I've known for many years, and he'd sent me a text and wanted to know if I could meet for lunch, and I said yeah, and I think it was the very next day I met with him because it rained and there wasn't much I could do, but I knew he wanted something. I didn't know what he wanted. I thought maybe he had a business proposition or something for me, and so we go to lunch, and the only thing he wanted was to make sure that I wasn't mad at him because I hadn't talked to him in so long and hadn't been in contact, and he was afraid that lack of communication on my part was me being upset about something, which I absolutely was not. And I felt bad, even on the way home from that lunch, I was thinking to myself, how many other people that I consider really good friends have I dropped the ball on? And even earlier this year, it's been a month or two ago, I had a family member basically tell me that I was neglecting my family duties because I was spending all my time taking care of business and such. Now, it wasn't a close family member. I promise you, if you talk to my wife or my daughters, my sons-in-law, my grandsons, none of them are going to feel neglected. But this was another family member that felt neglected because of all the time. And that's the biggest negative for me is the fact that there's not enough hours in the day for me to show everyone how much they mean to me. And that's why that turkey hunt a couple weeks ago what was so important to me. It wasn't the turkey. It was Joe and Al and Terry are great friends of mine, and I feel like that I get so busy with business and consulting and all these other things that I've neglected some friends and people that have been really good to me. That is the biggest negative, hands down, for me, is the fact that I don't have enough hours in the day to give people the degree of respect that they deserve.
Good answer. I don't think that's probably where anybody thought that was going, but that's a good answer.
Well, I think that lunch that I had this week, and I've told Robin this many times this winter, that next winter I want to slow down because one of the things I want to do is spend more time with old friends. I mean, I spent 20 years working at a factory and made a lot of good friends there that I haven't even seen in over a decade. Some of them since the day I left 20 years ago, that I'd like to just reconnect and just see how they're doing and share a lunch with them or something, because I've just had so many people that have been really good to me that I've kind of lost contact with, basically because I'm so busy.
Yep. All right. Well, we're cruising right on an hour. Let's save the other two questions for next week. What's on the agenda for this week for you, buddy?
Well, it's supposed to rain most of the week, so if it would ever quit raining, I'd like to start planting food plots. That's about the only thing I've got left on my list is several food plots to plant.
Yeah, I'm in the same boat. But my time's going to be really limited. We're into graduation weeks where about every week of the night there's something going on for my son with his upcoming high school graduation. So we'll get it all squeezed in somehow. But like you just mentioned, a deer food plot is not worth me shortchanging opportunities to spend time with my kids. So my challenge to each of you all out there is the busyness. Don't let the busyness run your life. Prioritize and put time where it needs to go. Even Don and I have to do that. Planting your soybean plot in June, if that's what you have to do to make sure you're the dad, the husband that you need to be. I encourage you to make those decisions accordingly.
Yeah, I would just a few years ago, if I was sitting in the same position I am today with none of my plots planted, and I would just be beside myself, worried about the weather and this and that. Today, I figure it'll get done when it gets done. If that plot gets planted 2 weeks later than I want it, it's still going to be a plot come fall. I got all summer to catch up on things, but we got to keep our priorities in order, and people are the most important thing.
Yep. Mother Nature's going to do what it's going to do. We've learned that lesson the last few years, haven't we?
No doubt about it.
All right. Well, thanks, everybody. We really appreciate the support. We'll be back with you next week.
God bless everybody. Hope you have a great week.
Chasing Giants has been brought to you by Osseo Camo, Via Farm Real Estate Company, 360 Hunting Blinds, Victory Chevrolet, Real World Wildlife Products, Matthews Archery, Novix Tree Stands, Gingerich Tree Farm, WildlifeFarming.com, Quiet Cat, and Vortex Optics. Thanks for listening, and tune in next week for another episode of Chasing Giants.